So we're in this period of change right now, this unprecedented period of transformation. We got the third platform coming at us, cloud, big data, trust, mobility, social, everything all rolled into one. Interesting time. I'm wondering, how do we address that, and what does the future look like? What's the fourth platform? What's the fifth platform, right? Moving forward.
Well, I think the first thing is, it isn't so much about individual platforms. It's about this fundamental change that IT is no longer defined by the composition of its technology. It's defined by the end user experience, and the end user experience expectation is changing. What we learned in the cloud era, the first couple of years of it, was that if you rethink how people interact with technology from a perspective of the consumer, that you think about it that you want a service, you insert a credit card. You want to run an application, you run it wherever you need it. It follows you around. And you suddenly have this seamless, extremely abstract but useful experience where the technology is hidden from you. What we've learned in the consumer side is that actually resonates. And what's occurring right now with something called the consumerization of IT is that the IT environment is now being held to that standard. And so if there's one thing that will define the evolution of enterprise IT for probably the next decade, is this consistent shift towards a much more seamless, much more abstract, much more automated, and much more user-centric experience in which the technology just disappears. The best technology in the world is the stuff you don't see that just enables you to be productive and effective as a business user. And so I think as we navigate that challenge, as we move into that era, the consequences are we're going to have to develop new technology. We're going to have to deploy it and operate it in different ways. We're going to have to strip out all kinds of complexity that currently is just assumed to be the status quo. And we're going to have to really, really be focused on what that end user experience is and how they perceive us. Vic told me a funny statistic about, when you do a IT survey these days and you ask people what do they think of IT, the answer is usually not too positive, even if you're a great IT organization, because they're comparing you to their experience on an iPhone or their experience in the cloud.
Right.
And we now have to, it's no longer debatable. We have to get to be better than those experiences, and that will be just a profound change in how things operate.
It's an important message. Simplicity and efficiency. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the product is or how you get it to me. Just give me what I want when I need it and make it work.
No, absolutely. It's about instant on these days. It's about instant gratification. The days when IT used to talk in ERP language are gone. Yeah. Nobody's got patience for that anymore. You cannot go to your leader, business leader, and say, it's going to take me 2 to 3 years to implement this. They'll walk you out the door. They are looking for, what's my next 30-day, 60-day, 180-day plan? What are you going to deliver to me? This is where agile computing is coming into play. Absolutely. Right? How do you become more contemporary in your approach, in your solutions? So I agree with John. Right? The idea behind this thing is the user experience. What is the user experience? They are comparing us to all the tools and capabilities that, I call them the whippersnappers that are now coming in, the millennials or whatever, Gen X, Gen Y, whatever is coming.
Whippersnappers and their kids and their music.
But here's what's happening, right? We hire them, you give them a break, you put them in a cage and say, go work.
That's right.
How long do you think they'll last? 36 hours, they're going to say, okay, I'm ready to go somewhere else. Yeah. This is not an exciting environment.
You're right.
Because they are now comparing it, the capability they had before they joined us, and saying, I had more freedom of using the equipment and the capabilities that I have that you are giving me now.
That's a really good point.
Right?
That's a really good
so
point.
You have to adjust to that and saying, how do you up that experience? How do you make it an exciting environment where you can attract that talent and retain that talent rather than putting them in a box?
Really interesting perspective. I'm wondering, John, so circling back, in designing the enterprise of the future and for the next wave of employees, which is a point that I think a lot of people lose sight of. How do we design for that today? How do we recognize those challenges and then say, let's start building it?
Well, it's a bit of a conflict because most of us want, transparent and seamless and radically effective IT that, just works. But part of the definition of just working is that it actually doesn't fail, that it has transparent performance characteristics, that it's secure, that it does not risk your data and your information. And so the most interesting inflection right now is this idea of adopting kind of a new world paradigm in terms of user experience, but preserving the expectations enterprises have that this infrastructure is not a toy. Yeah. This is running real businesses. I use a phrase, we have this term big data and fast data that we'll probably talk about, I describe another type of data called vital data. And the vital data is the stuff that actually, if it disappears or gets compromised, people die. Businesses go away. It's your core intellectual property. And so the clouds of the future are not, just to run music, and they're not just to share pictures, and they're not to run games. They're actually to run businesses. And so this is the real challenge for the industry. And this is what kind of makes me very excited about EMC. We have a core competency in building that infrastructure of vital data. But we also are now playing in this new world of the cloud. And when you put those two things together, if you pull them together to build that beautiful user experience, then you have a real winning formula.
Value proposition is absolutely there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And this is where, when you take that headache away from a CIO, where he or she is not really focused on the infrastructure that's running like a utility, that is the way it's supposed to run, and it's actually taking you to the next stage, then I can focus on business issues.
Excellent.
Right? This is how the game and the involvement and what a CIO delivers to a business changes the game. This is not about getting a seat at the table. This is about you already have a seat at the table.
Perfect.